the sovereignty bill is something that if we know, we can guard against what the attempts are from these people, and also we can make sure to fight it knowing where it affects most. And maybe we can get more people to stand up and rally for change, because this bill actually affects the most vulnerable. I'm talking every single Ugandan who has a job, who has a relative abroad, who works for a bank, who works for MTN, who works for any corporation that is not Ugandan. So it is a broad bill, and it affects everyone. So I need everyone to pay attention and do something about this, okay? So speaking of information, it is important that we share this, because eventually we can all fight it together. That's the goal. So anyways, starting with, so the Ministry of Internal Affairs is the one that has been chosen to actually administer or administrate over this bill. That means that every law and whatever pertains to the sovereignty bill, it has to do with the Internal Affairs Office, including getting the licenses and the proposed permissions to act a certain way or do business or do certain things. Okay, but the sovereignty bill, which is currently being tabled after diversions, unfortunately, something like the loss of our member of parliament, Helen Nachimuli, it is an attempt to get us focused and busy on crying and worrying about, hello Lydia, so that we are more concerned and drawn to the loss of our loved one, obviously. But in the background, they are moving on to pass these bills and break people's homes, which all of that is illegal. But obviously, they want to keep us busy with these things, like the trial of the children's murderer. In fact, that one, it's going to go like this and that for 5 long years. They want to waste our time dissecting whatever the guy did, or today they brought out some kitchen knives, which we all have in our homes, to try to tell us that that was the kitchen knife or the knife that was found at the scene. Who cares, okay? All of that is to keep us from focus on what is coming up, like the land bill and the sovereignty bill, okay? The sovereignty bill especially affects the power that belongs to the people. It first of all, in the Constitution of Uganda, Article 1, okay, it says that all power belongs to the people, who shall exercise it through expression of their wishes, their value, and aspirations on how they wish to be governed, through regular, free, and fair elections. And all institutions of government, their authority, through the power of the people, who are sovereign and will exercise such authority in respect of value, aspirations, and values of the people. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. Sovereignty in the Constitution of Uganda, Article 1. This means the power of the people, by the people, for the people, which means the government of Uganda should not, and if it does, with this bill, it violates Article 1 of the Constitution, which gives Ugandans their own powers as a people to act on their wishes, their value, and aspirations on how they wish to be governed. I know this is already broken by January 15th, 2026, because of the election rigging and stealing of the win from His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. The sovereignty was destroyed there and then, but in many other ways they have done so. But more so, this is going to take the hair off your heads, because it is insane. I'm talking about affecting every single part of life and existence and freedom, economy, care and love for everyone that lives in Uganda. So I'm going to read to you the Article 1 of the Constitution of Uganda that has to do with sovereignty. This is public information, so you can always find it, okay? It says, all power belongs to the people, who shall exercise it through expression of their wishes, value, and aspirations on how they wish to be governed through regular, free, and fair elections. And all institutions of government. I know that this one's broken right dead on arrival, obviously, because all institutions. Now, when you think about judiciary, that's already failed. When you think about the government, that's already failed. When you think about the parliament, that's already failed. This paragraph in itself has been decimated, broken, destroyed, and completely trumped over by this NRM government, the Museveni government. So I will start over and just read this finally to the end. All power belongs to the people, who shall exercise it through expression of their wishes, value, and aspirations on how they wish to be governed through regular, free, and fair elections. And all institutions of government deliver their autonomy, their authority, through the people who are sovereign, and will exercise such authority in respect of values, aspirations, and wishes of the people. So it's basically saying that Ugandans are a free people who have wishes, values, and aspirations, which they are free to exercise whenever they feel like. And also government institutions should respect those wishes, aspirations, and value as they make law in a country called Uganda. Okay? The law focuses on, definitely the sovereignty bill focuses mainly, as I mentioned, it's going to be executed mainly by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Internal Affairs meaning the housekeeper of Uganda. The housekeeper, the one who will say there's the bathroom, there is the kitchen, there is the bedroom. That is internal affairs. Everything, the markets here, the hospitals are here, the schools are here. That's what internal affairs is meant to be. Foreign affairs is affairs of Uganda but executed abroad. So if anybody wants to come to Uganda or do something in Uganda, it is appropriate to go to a to talk to somebody from foreign affairs, because then they know about border laws of different countries and shared relationships and responsibilities and things like that. So internal affairs, the housekeeper of Uganda, is the one going to execute the details of this bill if it does pass. Okay. So the law is mainly focused on the recipients of Uganda, but mainly mongering fear among Ugandans. This law is not to protect a local or a Ugandan like me and you. No. This law is to protect, is to control your remissions or your services in Uganda and abroad, and also what hence you are referred to as your new name, which makes you a diasporan or a foreigner in your own country. So it mainly affects recipients of all the services listed, mainly in Uganda, and also to keep them, Ugandans, poor, to keep them less able to achieve certain things for themselves. For example, in reference to people who work abroad, this sovereignty law designates you as a foreigner. Meanwhile, Museveni and his family are Rwandese refugees, foreigners in Uganda. They have now flipped the script to make foreign Ugandans who live abroad foreigners of their land. But the reason why I refer to this as a bill focused on the recipients of Uganda is to try to control how well recipients of anything, service, economy, wealth, I'm talking treatment, anything, the recipient, your grandmother in Uganda, your parents in Uganda, the children you left behind who you're funding or financing, those are the people affected the most regarding the sovereignty bill. Okay, so let's break it down. The intention is obviously, I said, affecting the recipients, but more so to also make them fearful. All Ugandans who are in Uganda, whom this bill will affect, it is to cause them a lot of fear, because that is the main intention of this foreign refugee government in Uganda. So here are the categories, and you will see how this affects everyone. You know, when NUP started as a party in Uganda, and with a great message of people power, some people felt like they were too good to be among the people seeking change in Uganda because they had temporary comforts. When the president said, let's go and walk to parliament, or let's go and do this, the people who are, say, the business people, the elites, the so on and so forth, I work in the bank, were like, no, we can't do that because, you know, my job is what pays for my children's tuition. Now, children are being killed purposely, and after that, a stupid, luxurious criminal is paraded before us for a really long time, and nothing, a bottomless sort of kangaroo court happens with no end in sight. I mean, they're rubbishing what is purposeful, what is right, and making their nonsense take place of what's really valued and important for Ugandans. So in any case, let's go over the areas where this bill affects all people of Uganda. Okay? If you travel outside of Uganda for any reason, let's say you're sick and you need to go get treatment, once you return, you are a foreigner in Uganda. I'm talking going over to Kenya to go and get some sort of surgery or further treatment, let alone going all the way to Turkey for a special, you know, treatment or diagnosis. Anything small that you leave your footsteps out of Uganda, you become a foreigner. Anyone who goes out, if you live abroad like we do, I'm a citizen of the United States of America. I also have dual citizenship with Uganda and the US. Now, I am fully, according to this law, I am fully a foreigner of Uganda, despite being born in Uganda and having the right at birth, by birth, to be and be eligible for dual citizenship. I am considered, and when I say I, think about, you know, who you might know, or if you are abroad, this affects you equally. You are a foreigner in Uganda if this bill passes. If you work abroad, I'm talking a lot of commodities are between Uganda and Kenya, or, you know, people buy tomatoes from Kenya and bring them to Uganda, even if Uganda can grow all these things. Okay, we're so stifled that people no longer focus on trying to make a living, because when you do, these guys find a way to make you lose value of whatever you're trying to do for yourself. So anyways, if you work outside of Uganda, say you work in Kenya, telecommunications, you work for a major company that can send you to Kenya to go and work and bring you back or whatever, or you go to Kenya to go pick up a load of tomatoes to bring and sell in Uganda, you are a foreigner. And being a foreigner in this case means that you will have to pay a certain fee to get you certified as a foreigner who is able to trade in Uganda. Okay? So if you do sell tomatoes, pick up tomatoes in Kenya and sell them in Uganda, you need a special license to be given to you by Internal Affairs to go and become a trader between Kenya and Uganda. And failure to do any of that, okay, failure to get certification as required by the housekeeper Ministry of Internal Affairs, you are fined for up to 2 million shillings or 20-year imprisonment. I'm talking if they catch you and say, you know, John or whoever it is just went to Kenya, bought a crate of tomatoes, brought them into Uganda without getting this permission from the Internal Affairs. Therefore, John is now going to be in prison for 20 years, or he has to pay 2 million for one crate of tomatoes that came across. Crazy.